Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to the Behind the Steel Curtain family of podcasts. You know it as BTSC. You know me as BAD, Brian Anthony Davis. Along me, Tone Deaf, the one and only literary legend, Tony Defeo, here talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tony, how are you today?
I'm fine, Brian. How are you tonight?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. It is a very rainy, ugly Monday. Just like the Carpenters would say, rainy days and Mondays always get bad down.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm talking Steelers. We're 2 weeks away from the Steelers at the New York Giants at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. I cannot wait. It is coming down to the wire, Tony, and we are feeling good. And that's what we are here to talk about with all of our friends from BTSC Nation. It's nice to see some filling in the live chat right now. This is the Steeler Q&A. And the great thing about the Q&A is that we will answer your questions, and we will also answer a question of our own. So in about 20 minutes, we will go to that part of the show, and we really appreciate it. So hold your questions to about then. But right now, we are going to talk about the happenings of the day in Pittsburgh. You know, the Steelers, we had the David DeCastro injury the other day on, I believe it was Friday night, and have not heard way too much about that, Tony. Is there anything, has anything come out a little more today?
I haven't heard a whole heck of a lot. I saw that Tomlin addressed it, but he didn't really, as far as I could tell, he didn't add a whole lot to it. I'm not that concerned. I mean, I think he's a veteran. He's seeing him on the interact on the live look-ins. He seems like he doesn't seem like he's in great distress. So I think he'll be fine. I think it's just being overly cautious with a veteran.
And they're really not disclosing even what the injury was, but he had left practice. So that's something that we'll definitely look out for. You really want to keep this offensive line intact, especially when you have your best offensive lineman there. He is pretty much your anchor at this point as far as that offensive line goes. If you ask me, and you ask a lot of other people, but there's some great veterans on that line as well, and an up-and-comer like Matt Filer. So great. As I look at the live chat right now, Boing Boom, man, I can't pronounce this. Boing Boom Shack says it's a lower body injury, and that's kind of what they said. So we'll continue to look at that. We also look at the live chat right now. Greetings from Brazil, Tony. Leonardo Torres is in here. That's fantastic.
And greetings from Butler. My man T Monday Terry's here. So I mean, we're all over the place. We're international. Butler, Brazil.
Butler to Brazil. And they all have, if you're Brazilian, you have an accent. If you're Butler, you have an accent.
You're in Crafton, you have an accent. Everywhere, yeah.
I lost my Yinzer accent a long time ago. I mean, my parents and my family still have traces of it.
Yeah, every now and then it'll come out for me too.
But I want it back. I love my Yinzer accent. I feel like when I was younger, I had a whole lot more of it. But Tony, so feeling really good today, just for the fact that even though it's raining, knowing that we're 2 weeks away, knowing that as I knock on wood, knowing that there have not been any extreme stories coming out of camp that really would make us nervous. So there you go. Look forward this week to the next Big Ben part of the docu-series online. Tony, I heard you talking about that the other day. That's fantastic stuff, isn't it?
It is. It's obviously the part about the injury was fascinating, but I thought with stuff that he talked about with everything that happened with AB and all the criticism that he was taking and how that affected his family. And we always wondered, we talked about that back then. Why are they remaining so silent as an organization? But clearly they heard it, and clearly it bothered them, and it certainly bothered his wife and other members of his family. So that was fascinating. I can't wait for the second episode.
Yeah, I really can't wait to. It makes you really want them to do Hard Knocks, because I've been talking all along, and Jeff's thinks it would be interesting too. I'm a Hard Knocks fan, and I should probably give you my HBO account just to watch some of the, if they have the old ones on there, but the new ones with the Rams and the Chargers as well.
I heard it was really good.
So I'm a little bit behind on it, but it's really good. I'm going to call somebody out in the live chat right now. Andrew Osman. This is a name that we're not familiar with, Tony. And the reason we're not familiar with it, because Andrew says, first time watching live, been watching for 2 years, though. Never miss an episode. Hands down, best Steelers content out there. Thanks, guys. Andrew, that means a lot to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
We really appreciate it. Michael Perry Sr. Sup Steeler Nation from Anderson, South Carolina, home of the Black Panther. And I got to tell you, the news hit the entertainment world, hit the sports world, just hit the world that we lost Chadwick Boseman at the age of 43 the other day. I'm also of course, the Marvel series. I love that stuff, and I know that hit a lot of people hard, but Chadwick was actually really fantastic in the movie Draft Day, even though it was on the Cleveland Browns. Featuring the Cleveland Browns. I thought it was a very good film. I just watched that right before the draft too. Did not realize his battle for the last 4 years, and the last 4 years when he became the biggest of stars, where he really came up. So it was absolutely amazing. Read Ron Cook's article about how when he came into Pittsburgh and met Ben Roethlisberger and came to camp, and how he was just an amazing presence and one of the nicest people around. So really, a really rough loss to the entertainment world. So that's something that's very tough to see. So, rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you so much from the live chat. We appreciate that. But let's get into, before we get into the question, let's get into the big news of the day. And we're already seeing it. And last week on the show, we were talking about the Steelers risking discord to add a piece of the puzzle in that might not be a perfect fit in Earl Thomas, the third. The third or the second? I've forgotten already. It is the third, right?
Third.
Earl is ET3. Boy, would have that been a bad sequel, ET3. I mean, we didn't even see ET2, but ET3, I mean, they would have been lost in New York and throwing paint cans at everybody with Joe Pesci. So, gosh, that would be really bad. No, the reason we're bringing that up, it has been long rumored that Leonard Fournette was going to be traded by the Jaguars. Apparently, they could not get that done, so they agreed to part ways with him today. And now Leonard Fournette is out there for one of 31 other NFL teams to go after. And as it is in Steeler Nation, what happens so much is when a big name pops up, there's a lot of people that will go, hey, we need to get him. And I remember just about 6 weeks ago, Michael Beck writing an article because he'd like the Steelers to go get him. He's one of those guys that thinks that he would be good. There's a lot of people like Ryan O'Toole says, and I love the way he put it. We don't need Lenny. So I guess we don't need Lenny. I really like that. But with that, Ryan O'Toole, I kind of agree with you. Tony, what's your thoughts? Is this just another big name that would not fit the piece of the puzzle, or are we overlooking something? Is this something that the Steelers should try to get him in at a reduced rate, or will he even come at a reduced rate?
Well, I think he'd want to be a starter, and I think they're set on James Conner, at least for 2020, being their guy. I mean, if they do bring somebody in like a Fournette, I mean, we saw what happened a number of years ago with LeGarrette Blount when they brought him in to be the backup to Le'Veon Bell, and he barely played, and it didn't sit well with him. And you know what happened in Tennessee, and they had to cut him. So what would his role be here? Would he accept the backup role? And I don't think he would, and I don't think they're looking for a starter. So I mean, you have Bennie Snell, you have Samuels, you have the new kid and Anthony McFarland. I don't know if they're even looking at a Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, I really don't think they would at this point. That's something that I kind of think some of those big names, when when he's enough problem, he wants to be a free agent because he's going to go after that money, and his deal is expiring soon. Why bring that guy in at this point?
Right.
It's just it would be a rental, and when you're left with nothing else, and that's kind of going to move a little bit more into our point of what we are going to be getting to here with the question of the day and the Steelers Q&A. And that's something that we're going to go ahead and take a look at right after this, Tony. Welcome back to the Steelers Q&A. You've got Brian Anthony Davis and Tony Defeo here with you from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Before we get into the question, we've got $5 from my good friend Snowman. Absolutely loves Snowman. He's a big friend of the show. He sent $5 in to help us with our costs. We appreciate that. And when you do that, you get to the top of the queue. Rest in peace, King T'Challa. I always have problems with that. But remember, I can't do accents either. So, AKA Chadwick Boseman, Wakanda Forever. Those movies have really shaped us. That series, the last couple of years, I've seen them all, and I absolutely love them. And when I had an opportunity to go see that with my son, when Black Panther came out, and it was on a holiday weekend, and we went on a Monday because we had the day off, and it was awesome. So rest in peace. Also, we always say this, we got our message. It never starts very beginning of the show, but it comes in and we always look forward to it. It's just not Bad and Tony, it's the Beastie Boys. As Big Marv says, what's goody to the Beastie Boys? What's goody to all my Steeler Nations family? What's poppin', Ezra? What's goody, Snow? So Big Marv's in the house. Robert Sasovitz, this is really funny. I love this. We mentioned a joke when we were talking about Earl Thomas, ET3, what kind of movie that would be. He wants to know if would ET3 ride JuJu's bike.
I just wanted to, Ezra was mentioning about Fournette better than Snell. He probably is better than Snell at this point, but the fact it's about what role he's willing to accept. And I don't think he'd want to come here and be a backup. I think he'd want to come here and be a starter. And I think they're set with James Conner and they're set with their backups behind him.
Yeah, I really think they are. And not only that, and that leads into the topic, because a lot of things, we're not getting a lot out of camp. There's not a lot of news. It's only the news that they really want to tell us. And I understand that. And that's without being at St. Vincent College, with the media being so limited. The Steelers are controlling the rhetoric. And I think that's happening in most locales right now. This is something that this is Bill Belichick's dream. And it's probably it's probably Mike Tomlin's dream too.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised of that as well. So this is working out. I mean, because we've seen we've had the podcast on here. Jeff Hartman's mentioned it. A bunch of us have mentioned it, with the Steelers keeping stuff really close to the vest, and that's something that they've done. But the one thing they've done that you never hear a whole heck of a lot of is praising younger players. And 3 players that we have heard a lot of praise for would be, in this order: Bennie Snell Jr., who you just mentioned, Chase Claypool, and also Alex Highsmith. Now, 2 are draft picks. The other one is a second-year player. And why do I bring all of those guys up? Because they would be the future of the team if JuJu Smith-Schuster, James Conner, and Bud Dupree were to leave via free agency. Now, I'm not talking, I've left out another huge free agent to be, and that's Cam Hayward. And the reason I've left Cam Hayward out of this, because this is really something that we got to bring up. There's nobody that they're really praising on the defensive line. So when I hear all this praise here for these three players, it makes me think that they are foreshadowing something. It makes me think that by mentioning all these players and glowingly about these guys, makes me think, Tony, that they are already prepping for future without JuJu, without Alvin Bud, and without JC. What do you think on that, Tony?
Oh, I've been beating that drum since the draft. I mean, it's so obvious. Like I said last on the show the other day, all of a sudden last week you started hearing more about Chase Claypool and Alex Highsmith, and then the first week of camp it was about Bennie Snell. At least I paid a lot. I heard a lot about Bennie Snell. At least I seem to in the first week. So yeah, I think they've been. It's almost a foregone conclusion that you're going to lose at least two of those guys. I think. I don't know how you sign all three of them. Really, I mean, why would you want to keep a James Conner? I like James Conner, but he's been injured and he's going to want to raise. So why, he doesn't seem like somebody that they're going to bring back. And of course, JuJu's going to want big time money. I don't see them being able to afford him. And of course, Bud Dupree. There's just no way he's going to. A player like him on the open market, an elite or at least a really successful pass rusher over the last couple of years, he's gonna command big bucks.
You just don't know who they're going to throw a franchise tag out of you. You don't know what they're going to. Remember, Omar Khan makes magic, but I don't know how much magic he can make with those three guys and also Cam Hayward in the mix. So I'm wondering if this is just the case of, look, this is the reality of the NFL in the last decade, and we have got to prep for the future, and we've got to wish these guys well in their future endeavors. We would love to keep them. These are guys that they would definitely love to keep in some capacity. I would think if you would rank them on the guys they would keep, I'm not sure. We might all have different ranks, because mine would probably be on one day JuJu, Bud, and Conner. The next day it might be Bud, JuJu, and Conner, or Bud, Conner, and JuJu, or JuJu, right, Conner, and Bud. So I mean, they're all very good players, and right, they're all valuable. And I think really that you have a guy like JuJu Smith-Schuster, that the only thing he is playing for this year is not a contract. The only thing he is really playing for this year is a ring. Because look at a guy like Allen Robinson, who got a 3-year deal years ago, 3-year deal, $42 million, and played one game that season before he got that deal because he was hurt. Had one game, 17 yards.
Right.
And he got it based on the fact that 2-3 years before he had a 1,400 on the dot, a 1,400 yard season. So JuJu right now is playing on reputation. He's going to get paid on reputation,
right? And
that's the way it works. So if he's playing for anything, I think he is playing for a ring. Michael Perry Sr., I agree with you. He says Bud knows he's gone after this year, but JuJu wants to retire a Steeler. I really agree. But when you're looking at guys like Deontay Johnson, James Washington, and Chase Claypool, and the way they draft these guys, Tony, do you feel that they'd be like, we would love to keep JuJu, but he's expendable at this point because we can groom these guys?
I agree. Look at the last 10 years with them, with receivers, how they've drafted and developed receivers. And, a guy like JuJu, I agree. He could be a lifer here, under different circumstances, but everything that's happened with the cap, they're already up against the cap as it is, and they're going to be even more up against it next year it's going to be reduced to some level. We don't know if it's going to be 175 or a little higher, but it's not going to be 198 more than likely. So he's expendable. You hate to say it, but he's just he's a luxury you can't afford he's going to want number one money. And as you said, it's basically a player's market, free agency. So many teams usually have way more cap room than the Steelers. Even next year with a compromised salary cap or reduced salary cap, there are probably still going to be some teams that have a surplus of money, of room. So yeah, I'd love to see him stay, but I just don't see it. I just don't see them being able to afford it, and I don't think they're going to overpay to keep him because of their ability to draft and develop receivers.
You know what? I want to keep Juju. I want to keep James Conner. I want to keep Bud. I want to keep all of these guys, but they're talking about the possibility of a $40 million less salary cap. And I agree with you when you talk about the teams that are going to have salary cap room. They're still going to have salary cap room, even with that less. And I'm just predicting a whole heck of a lot of movement next year. I don't even know how that's going to be possible to have that less of a salary cap. But that's something that just remains to be seen, and we will see. As far as Bud goes, I don't see them throwing a franchise tag at him again. I don't even see Bud accepting a franchise tag again. Right. After that was done twice to Le'Veon Bell. I could possibly see the same thing happening. I would hope not, but these guys are playing for this might be their last contract, because remember, they're NFL players and bodies break down, and you want to get that first contract that you renewal that you get, or the first new contract that you get, you want it to be big. So I think with guys like Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool coming in, and even the praise that James Washington's getting, that it could be a possibility that they are already looking towards the future, and they might be saying internally, "Hey, we'd love to keep this guy. We'll do our best to do so." Right. But it might not be possible. Go ahead, Tony.
Oh, and like we keep mentioning week after week, and not just us, but a lot of people, Deontay Johnson's probably destined to be their number one receiver. So it just, again, it's Juju's a luxury at this point, with everything that we just mentioned about them drafting, developing receivers over the course of an entire decade. I mean, they know how to do that. They might not have. They struggled with cornerbacks for a number of years trying to develop them, but they know how to do the receivers. So it's unfortunate, but it's a luxury they just can't afford.
And the list goes on, and Wes puts it up here. James Conner, Jalen Samuels, Ryan Switzer, Vance McDonald, Eric Ebron, Alejandro Villanueva, Matt Filer, Zach Banner, Daniel McCullers, Bud Dupree, Vince Williams, Mike Hilton. So that's a big part of your team there. Dallas Quinley says, Juju won't be a number one next year on our roster, so he can't be paid like one. You would love to keep these guys, but it's this is probably going to be one of the toughest free agent years coming up in 2021. And it was going to come up anyways, without COVID-19 and without the reduced salary cap. It was still going to be a very devastating. You were going to lose about 2 or 3 guys. You might lose a whole lot more. They're going to have to find a way to really make this work. And I do not really envy that job whatsoever. So, Tony, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this part of it up. And with some of our friends in the live chat, we're going to agree to disagree, because a lot of people think that that all these guys will stay. Some of them will stay. It's just hard. I mean, it's really hard to tell right now. But one thing that you look at is the fact that there's guys we're going to lose, and you just hate to see it, but we'll see how this whole thing pans out. But to wrap this up, Tony, do you agree that with the emphasis that they're putting on Highsmith, that they're putting on Claypool, they're putting on Snell, and even McFarland Jr., Anthony McFarland Jr., do you feel that they're prepping for the future?
I absolutely feel that way. There's just no way around it. I mean, we talk about how they like to kick the can down the road. Well, eventually you have to pay the piper, and looks like next year is going to be that year.
Absolutely. So this is all for part one. Stick around. If you're in YouTube, do not go away. If you are listening to us on any of our BTSC radio podcast platforms, please come back and download number 2, and we will be right back right after this. And we're back for Tony Defeo. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. Welcome back to part 2 of the Steelers Q&A. And today on this, when this is being recorded on a Monday, it is a rainy Monday in Maryland. I hope it's shining sun wherever you are at this point. And this is a part of the Q&A where we like to ask you all questions and find out what's on your mind and see if we could throw some insight. But before we go ahead and do that, Tony, we were talking earlier about the loss over the weekend of at age 43 of Chadwick Boseman. Very, very tough to hear. Very sorry about that loss. And something that just happened today that I just saw something right when I was preparing to go on, talking about another basketball coach remembering John Thompson, but I did not get a chance to look at it. And the sports world lost another legend today. And I'm going to bring up Ezra, who first mentioned it. R.I.P. John Thompson, my favorite college basketball coach. Now, not only did we lose John Thompson, we lost one of my favorite players, college basketball players from Pitt. Demetrius Gore passed away of a heart attack yesterday. And so in hearing all of this, when I think about how ironic it is John Thompson and Demetrius Gore were probably the two guys that I think of when I first started getting into college basketball. I did not start getting into college basketball until I was about in 8th grade. And I will never, ever forget that game against Villanova when Georgetown lost that game to Villanova. And I cried. I was probably 12 years old. I remember crying. I was so into John Thompson and Patrick Ewing and that Georgetown team. And that's the team that made me want to watch college basketball, because I just thought it was something that, it was on a Saturday afternoon when I was young and there was nothing to watch, and I would start watching it. Then I became enamored with John Thompson and also the Georgetown Hoyas. But I remember when I was working towards Washington, D.C., I used to listen to the Locker Room Show with John Thompson on the radio for a number of years. I used to listen to him after the fact, and he was really fun to watch, to listen to as well. So we lost a great one in John Thompson. But then I remember in 10th grade when Sean Miller came to Pitt out of Black Hawk. And I remember they made it, I guess, the second round of the NCAA finals. And it's not the finals, excuse me, of the NCAA tournament. And there were 4 guys that really caught my attention. It was Jerome Lane, Demetrius Gore, and of course, really the legend. And would you believe, Tony, that I was just reading about him today, and it's a guy that I always think of. He was my favorite college basketball player, and I just lost him. So help me out.
Charles Smith. Top 5 pick.
Yeah. Of the LA Clippers. And I can't believe I just lost that. That was the team that I just remember watching. And that got me into college basketball. And I was a big fan of Pitt. And I will continue to, be a big fan of the Pitt Panthers basketball team. But that's the team that all started it. So with the loss of Demetrius Gore over the weekend, loss of John Thompson today, and then hearing about Chadwick Boseman, please make it stop. That's all I'm going to say. you just hate to hear that. So let's go ahead open up the live chat to all of you. And if I've missed some of the live chat, any questions that you have, please go ahead and have them start filing in right now. And that's what we'll do. Ryan O'Toole says Ben redoing his contract next season somehow will be huge next season. Man, I just don't know how you still have all of that money that you're kicking down the road. Like you said, Tony, I don't even know how you still do that. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's how much money would that really free up? I mean, you might be able to free up enough to keep one of those players, but what if the Steelers don't want to do that? That's something we never really considered. What if they don't want to have been around beyond? I know it seems crazy to say, but he'll be 40 years old, and he's still going to want a big time contract, like guys like Brees and Brady are getting in their 40s. So maybe 2 years from now, maybe they want to move on and just say, look, we want to start over. We've especially if they haven't won another Super Bowl by then, they might just say, look, it's time to move on. You know, like the Colts did with Peyton Manning. It's just time. I mean, I realize that was injury related, not age related necessarily, but they might just say, look, we can't, we want to, replenish our roster. And we just have so many guys who, you're going to want to keep TJ Watt. You're going to want to keep Minka. You're going to want to keep Devin Bush by then. All those guys are going to want paid by then. So they might just decide to move on from Ben in a couple of years. That's something I've thought about recently.
Yeah, I've, that's tough for me. I'm not ready. I'm just not ready to cut ties with Big Ben.
I hear you there. Me either. But it's just, that could be the reality in a couple of years. You just never know what their thought process is.
But here's really what I'm looking at here. And this is the big question I keep asking myself. Is the window now, is it closing even further? Does the window extend past 2020 with all of these guys that we talked about, all of those guys that Wes listed here? Is it closing a whole lot quicker? Is it 2020 or bust for a championship with this team with all these guys on the way out the window? Now, I want to preface with the fact, and Dave Schofield always says that it's not when now. It's not because they're always looking to win, and I know that. But will there be even more of a rebuild coming after 2021? Because this might be really hard to overcome unless those guys that they're grooming for these spots don't. What's your thoughts on the window, Tony?
Well, as I always say, it's cliched to say, but as long as Ben's here, they're always going to have a chance to contend. And like you said, it's going to depend on what guys like. If Deontay Johnson is a superstar starting this year, or certainly next year when JuJu is gone and presumably gone, then that helps. And if Chase Claypool develops into something, of course James Washington looks like he can be a solid receiver. And if they solve the running back problem after James Conner leaves, and if Alex Highsmith becomes something and replace Bud Dupree, then yeah, you can still contend next year as long as you have Ben and the replacements are adequate. I don't think they're going to go into total rebuild mode starting next year if Ben is still on the team. Even if they lose all these guys, they're still going to want to try to win because they have him on the roster. So I don't think it's Super Bowl or bust this year, but I think this year on paper it looks like a better shot than next year.
Steelers Pittsburgh says gloom and doom sounds like Michael Beck on Friday. You know what? I'm going to recognize that, and I'm going to say, I don't want to be gloom and doom. So thanks for calling me out on that, Steelers Pittsburgh. I appreciate that. It's the reality that we're looking at, and it looks like they're prepping for the future, and they really are excited about some of the guys that they have coming in. So maybe it's not 2020 or bust. Dante Harris, who it is his birthday today. Happy birthday to Dante Harris. Many, many more, my friend, from your friends at BTSC. 2020 or bust, not bust, but the urgency is, however, now due to Ben's clock more than anything else. So he's saying that maybe it's Ben. Maybe Ben is the really the benchmark for this whole thing. So I really think that it's something that we're looking at right now. Wes says this. Yeah, you're right. When Ben goes, so does the OL, which we have maybe 2 replacements for, Chooks and Dotson. So, that's something to look at as well. Tony Portna-Quenba is in the house. Hey, Portna. Who are the top former Steelers most likely to return? That's a great question. I'd go Jesse James, BJ Finney, and Joshua Dobbs. Tony, why don't you take Jesse James first? And I don't think that would be this season.
Yeah, well, Wes, that list included both Vance McDonald and Eric Ebron as possible guys that they lose next year due to the salary cap ramifications.
Ebron has a 2-year deal, though.
Yeah, I know. I thought I saw that on there. I maybe he meant that they would just have to cut him. But if you do lose one of those guys, then Jesse James is obviously a very solid number 2. We saw him do his thing here for a number of years. He's a really good number 2 tight end. So I could see him coming back out of, a la, oh God, what's the guy's name that they brought back? The big guy who was just a blocker. But I think Jesse James is the better player than him. But yeah, I could see them bringing him back at a because he's already made a lot of guaranteed money in Detroit, or at least he will have by the time his contract is over. So yeah, Jesse James would definitely be somebody I could see them bringing back.
I would think he would be back as a number 2 receiver. That would not be a bad deal. I don't think Joshua Dobbs would be back. I really don't see them going in that direction. But BJ Finney's a really interesting one. It's already been said that he might be cut in Seattle. He might not make this squad. And Seattle gave him some very nice money for this season. And this would be a situation where the Steelers, if he does get cut, they would not be in line for another draft pick because of that. So that's one of those things that you would look at there, that I would think that he would be a kind of guy with his experience that they may possibly invite back.
Yeah, he's interesting because obviously they have Stefan Wisniewski as their primary backup in the middle there, guard and center. And then, of course, Kevin Dotson is presumably the guy for the future at left guard. But maybe somebody like Finney could be your future center if you decide to move on from Marquise Pouncey in a couple years. So yeah, that's an intriguing thought right there.
That's because you have Wisniewski there's on a 2-year deal as well. Ryan O'Toole, since we're talking Jesse James, I feel compelled to say Jesse cut that pass. Everybody agrees with you.
Everybody that knows physics and gravity knows that he caught that ball. I mean, how do you? Anyway, I don't want to get into it.
I'm gonna laugh with. I would laugh with Dallas Quinley here. Wait a week, the Jags will drop another player. I'm sure they will. I mean, they've got Trevor Lawrence on their mind. I will tell you that. Dante Leaf. How much of a pay cut do you think Ben will take in order to keep everyone?
I don't know if he's the pay cut kind of guy. Honestly, I think he's made more money than any quarterback ever on his contract. So I don't know. I don't think it's interesting to question. I mean, would he be willing to take it would have to be a significant pay cut because these guys are making 30-35 million a year now.
I don't think he's taking it. Neither does Wes. $0 pay cut. And the problem is you can't pay cut $41 million that's been kicked down the road that is owed to him. And that's something that, they could cut him today and they still have to pay that. And that still goes against the salary cap. With that, let's take one more question here. Ezra, it's after going O-line in the first round of the draft, which position should be our second pick in 2021? Middle linebacker, outside linebacker, safety. Right now, I would probably think that, I mean, it's way too early, Ezra, but right now, I would think that they would be looking at an offensive lineman with them getting really long in the tooth there. Tony, your thoughts?
Yeah, I those other positions, a couple of them depend on the inside linebacker. You have Ulysses Gilbert. I mean, he's a lower round pick. If he develops into a decent backup, then maybe you're not so worried about that. As far as outside linebacker, Alex Highsmith is currently in line to be that guy. And in safety, I mean, Edmonds he's still young and he's a former first round pick, and of course you have Minka. So I don't know if there's a real urgency there either.
Snowman says if the Steelers win number 7 this year, does Big Ben retire? I say no. The reason I say no is if he gets to 3 and he thinks that he possibly thinks that he could tie Bradshaw, he's coming back. I would not think that he would retire. What do you think? Thanks for the $5, Snowman.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Snowman. That's awesome. I think if he wins a third one this year, he's playing with house money at that point, and he's definitely going to come back a la John Elway in the late 90s and try to go for another one. What does he have to lose at that point? How many quarterbacks have won 3? If he falls short, he falls short of 4. So yeah, he would if he wins this year, he's definitely coming back next year.
So this is a really funny thing here. And I just lost it. Well, here Portna says this. What happens first? Bad gets a haircut or Tony shaves? Well, I could tell you that
I already shaved.
Probably Bad gets a haircut. You've already shaved? Because
I shave every Monday.
As soon as this show is over, I am getting a haircut. Oh. In fact, somebody is coming to my house and cutting my hair, and I'm getting some personal service today. And my wife said, "Hey, what time's the show going to be over? Because Christy's coming to cut your hair." So there you go. So there was another thing that I saw here, and I did lose it. But there was a really good question. But I do see this here. Mark Davison, excuse me, says, "Hey, mates." And as you know, Mark is one of the newest members of the BTSC podcast family, along with Maddie Peverell. If you have not had a chance to check out Steelers Down Under, their new show that debuted on Saturday, audio only, and they were also on with me on Tales from 2 a.m. You could go back and check and see those guys on there too. It's a really good show. It's Steelers. It's going to be everything Steelers, but with a perspective of somebody from Australia, two mates from Australia, or two blokes, or whatever they want to call it. So then Donald Nolan says this: shave every Monday. Man is structured like crazy. I haven't shaved in at least 2 months. LOL.
Every Monday I shave right before the show, and I let it go all the way through to the following Monday. That's I'm a Taurus, and we're really setting our routine. That's why I hate change. So
Just Me had a work call and said, "Did you answer my question? I lost your question, but I will wait until you throw that back up, and I will promise to answer that. I will not end the show without answering that." Big Marv says, "Bad is getting all dolled up. Watch out there now." Nah, just gotta look good for you in the live chat, because that's pretty hard to do, but it's getting shaggy. I had a mullet going during COVID, and then I finally got it cut. So
I would.
You would get a mullet?
No. I said I would say I'm getting a haircut soon, but I know that the response is always going to be, "What hair?" But it's been 9 weeks for me too, so it's probably time.
Well, I got to tell you, there's not a lot of genetic lotteries that I am ever going to win in this life, but the only genetic lottery that I've ever won, and I probably ever will, is my hair, because I'm 48 years old. There's not a bald spot, and it's really not. I'm in good shape with it. I mean, it's not really receding either, so I'm lucky in that fact. But when it comes to everything else, man, I'm a ticking time bomb sometimes. I really worry about that. So here it is. I think I found just me's question. I was watching Claypool video. It looked like he was catching the back of the ball instead of getting in front of it. Should I be concerned? Tony, I'll let you take that one.
It's a hard one to answer. I don't know. I mean, I somebody like Cliff Harris is still a punk. He'd probably be a better judge. Even Jeffrey Benedict, he's really good with X's and O's. I'm not sure. I don't know. I maybe he was supposed to. Maybe they were working on something. I'm not sure. From everything I've heard, he looks fantastic. So I wouldn't be too concerned until you see it in the game. If he has trouble, catching passes, then we have to worry about it. But right now, I wouldn't be too concerned about that.
Now, you know what? I'm not going to get too concerned about that yet either. And the reason being is they do have a lot of guys working with those players, and that's something that they'll definitely work on. But I know there have been a lot of praise coming his way, and when Joe Hayden makes that praise, the defender does not have to come in. A guy on the other side of the ball doesn't have to come in and ring his bell like that. When I say ring his bell, to chat him up. Let's just put it that way. So you would expect Ben to do it, but not Joe Hayden. But Joe Hayden's a very big team player. Dallas Quinley, who do you see as next year's number one, Claypool or Johnson? Tony, I'll let you take that.
If he keeps going the way he's going, I think Johnson's headed for that rarefied air.
I think he could be a possible superstar, and that's why I think that they're really loading this up. That if they have to say goodbye to any free agent, that these young players are being groomed to step into that spot. So with that, we are going to go ahead and wrap things up. And what we're going to ask you to do is check out all of the shows on the BTSC family of podcasts. Jeff Hartman has been throwing in those great camp updates every day that they practice in pads. So look out for one of those as well today. If you didn't have a chance to check it out, Let's Ride was this morning. The Steeler Retro Show is going to be tomorrow morning. So check that out as it's going to hit around 5 a.m. on the audio only platform. And then tomorrow night, you're going to get the SCO Bro Show. Everybody needs some SCO in their life. And then keep on checking out because we're going to have morning shows all week. We are revving it up because what's happening? 2 weeks, Tony.
2 weeks. Will be 2 hours and 39 minutes or so away from the Steelers versus the Giants in week 1 of the 2020 regular season.
And I got to tell you, before we check out, very generous donation on the super chat, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Icon 037 or Ishan 037, but thank you very much, my friend. 1999. He says next round of upgrades should include gold mics that work for the BTSC Steelers crew. Keep up the great talk coming. Thank you so much. That means a lot. Tony, one of the reasons we do this is we do it because it's passion and we love it.
Absolutely.
But also, wouldn't it be fun to do without everybody here in the live chat?
Those guys are great. I mean, they're way better than social media.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, the men and women in our live chat, we really appreciate you. Thank you so much for all that you do for us. You inspire us, and it's really a big deal. Remember, 2 weeks, and we're going to be talking to you. Everybody from BTSC is going to be with you all the way. So thanks so much for being our BTSC family. So we're going to take it out. But check us out, remember, and like my good friend, the late Rowdy Roddy Piper would say, just when you think you've got all the answers,
we keep changing the questions.
For Tony Defeo, I'm Bryan Anthony Davis. We'll see you next week. Bye now.